What do you like to see as them taking their first steps?
I think we are focused a little bit later than crowdfunding, where like sometimes you can start a crowdfunding campaign really even at the just pure idea stage and see if you can get the critical mass of just interest there. We're usually investing in founders and businesses that have already managed to sort of launch a product, and they're hitting one of a couple sort of inflection points where just the sort of capital is going to get them over the hump. And the first one that we really like, and it was sort of the North Star for even starting this fund, was just basically people who build a business on the side, and it's starting to grow, but it doesn't cover their bills. Either maybe they live in a place like New York or San Francisco, or the cost of living is high. Maybe they, they're a little further on in life, so they have a couple of kids and a mortgage and a lot of financial dependence, and so you can't just go full time on your business that's making $1,000 a month. But increasingly, you're spending your nights and weekends, you're getting support tickets, you're trying to add features, and you just hit this pain point where you're not making enough to go full time, but you're just not making any progress with just nights and weekends. So that's really one of the areas where we like to come in and just write a check that lets the founder go full time before the business can really support it. So that's one model. And then what we're seeing is there's sort of more of those inflection points through the first couple of early stages of businesses. So sometimes you see a company that we just funded, they were already at about break even on a team of 5, and they were just looking to move from just pure inbound traffic to making their first marketing hire. They wanted to hire a good head of marketing, give them a budget, and let them see if they can start to get those engines churning. It's the same thing. If you're at break even or you're kind of putting away a little bit of profit, you just kind of do need some capital to get you over that. And then the last thing we're seeing is that there are a lot of awesome aspects of the sort of venture funding world that we're trying to bring along for the ride without the sort of, how are you going to be a billion-dollar company? And that's stuff like having a community of founders that you're working with together, shared resources, you can share the same accountant who understands how SaaS works, you can do all that stuff. And then you can also have mentors of basically experienced founders who are actually literally invested in your success. That's something that, as a pure bootstrap founder, I really missed when I was building my company, and we're trying to bring that to more than just a check, I guess. So.
I love that, and that's such good advice because you really need to be able to justify reasons for capital. I hate when I see a pitch deck and they're like, we need $2 million, and their breakdown of funds is like literally the perfect third pie: legal, marketing, hiring, and it's kind of like, yeah, like you're saying, we know that we're at a place we need a marketing hire, and like you need to be able to hit that button point. But another good thing that we need to talk about, and I love what Earnest Capital, I'd love to talk to you more about the revenue share, because you see so many startups now, especially with these big raises, that by the time they get to their Series A round, they're already like own less than 20% of the company. And you don't have to do that. Unfortunately, banks don't really make small, medium business loans to startups anymore. So can you talk a little bit about like why it's important to protect your equity at early stage?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really get into that game, to be honest. I think there's a whole strategy around, optimizing your dilution if your game plan is to build a business that's going to require increasingly more and more rounds of funding. And yeah, you sort of hear these horror stories of folks who build these incredible businesses that they end up owning 3% of by the end of it. And, it's just not a great outcome. We really like to make investments where we basically say, okay, by the time this money runs out, you're going to get back to, break even or default alive, to where you won't need capital again. And I think that's a really good strategy for founders because, it's so much better to be in a position where you don't need the capital, right? And that's basically how you avoid ending up owning 3% of your company, is to never put your business in a situation where you have to have that capital. The other way to do that, if you actually have a business that needs capital, is there's this increasing range of new options that are like a little bit less like non-dilutive, right? So you're not selling this long-term equity in your company, and you've got folks like Clearbank that sort of do so for a little bit more mature businesses that are funding their marketing spend. There's revenue-based financing, and there's what we do, which is closer to a profit share. But in all those situations, what you're not doing is basically just selling a long-term perpetual chunk of your company.